Good evening, everybody. It is July 21st, and we have 2XKO news coming tomorrow. So I wanted to put together this little presentation about what I think can be reasonably expected from tomorrow's announcement, as well as who the character is going to be, alongside who I think the other two characters from later on in development are going to be. The last three remaining characters, I think I have a pretty solid interpretation of exactly who they're going to be, with some evidence to back that up. So what do I mean by that? Who even am I? Who is this guy? I am someone who has been following 2XKO's journey since day one. I was reading the news that Radiant Entertainment was acquired by Riot Games in 2015, the original makers of Rising Thunder, who have since been working on it as the game has developed and changed so much over the years. It is by far my most anticipated game of my life. I was in my League era during that time, regretted as I do, so that did bring me closer to this, so I'm still really excited for this game, and I am following it as closely as I possibly can. So I'm an avid fighting game player, I commentate, I'm involved in the scene, and as well as that, I also have a background and a passion in game design and development, and was also in talks with the developers at EVO 2024 to help me get a further sense of where I am. I intend to be the best Braum in the world. I ran a crew battle format that I created for myself in Alpha Lab 1. I've reviewed everything that I possibly can, and I love everything about League other than League. Arcane is one of my favorite shows, TFT. The Ruined King game is great. So that's a little bit of background of me. We're going to be discussing the tweet itself. You know, we're getting news tomorrow morning of some exciting updates, which is why I think we are actually going to be on track with the anticipated 2025 release. I know that there was kind of some worry about that based on the status of Alpha Lab 2, but I think they wouldn't lead us in like this unless it was going to be all good news. You know, EVO is exciting news, but I don't think they're going to say, the game's 2026, by the way, at the end of that. You know, bit of speculation, but I do think that we're on track for an Alpha Lab 3 later this year, leading into release. So by that, I mean, you know, there haven't been any new announcements. I'm just going to real quick cover EVO. Ignore how dense this page is. I'll just cover everything briefly, as well as my scientific interpretation. You can see exactly down to the metrics that I've created right here. So EVO 2023 is when people got their first hands on it. EVO 2024, they expanded the booth a bunch, as well as they had Alpha Lab a month later. Bad boy pamphlets right here at EVO 2024. And 2025, I think, is going to be the same thing, leading into the Alpha Lab, and then that is going to follow into the release, depending with a time frame from either a month to a handful of weeks, kind of looking at Valorant's development past. So I think that their history of listening to player feedback is actually what led us to Alpha Lab 2 being where it was. And I think that's why we're going to see Alpha Lab 3 and the actual release of the game be kind of the best of both worlds. You know, Alpha Lab 1 was almost too aggressive, but it was very tag fighter-y, and Alpha Lab 2 had many expanded defensive options, but as a result, that slowed the pace down and took the tag fighter, which is supposed to be a little bit chaotic and crazy, away from the player base. So I think that did affect it. So you can see here by my metrics, I had Alpha Lab 1 be very offensive, but that led to a lot of the sauce present. You know, 82%. That's a very specific number. Alpha Lab 2, they overcompensated, brought it back too much. It was just a little bit almost more defensive than offensive, which really hurt its sauce scale. You know, people were still having fun with it, but I think we're gonna reach that 89 to 100%. I think it could be accomplished. So enough about random stuff. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? I have 6 central metrics for determining who is going to be the upcoming characters for 2XKO for the actual release of the game. Firstly, they got to be iconic to the design. Their design has to be iconic to League itself. So I don't think we're going to be seeing like a Cho'Gath. I don't think we're going to be seeing, another way more generic character like Talon, for instance. I don't think we're going to be seeing someone that doesn't really scream the unique design intricacies of League itself. They have to be appealing. So I don't just mean they have to be pretty to look at. Their aesthetic has to also complement the general design of 2XKO. So I don't think we're going to be seeing somebody like Gragas or somebody like Corki, who is a little bit more blocky in texture, kind of simply shaded, big and bulky. A lot of 2XKO is about that very sleek, cel-shaded, thick outlines aesthetic. So the characters have to complement that. Of course, they have to be a fighter. Although ignore the fact that I actually have Set up there, that is just kind of to emphasize the point, but they can, as long as they have something that can resemble like meaningful attacks and abilities in a way that animates well for a fighting game. So I don't think we're going to be seeing someone who's very slow with general motions. I don't think we're going to be seeing like Anivia or Lysandra or Ashe, bow fighters. Like, they can work, but I think for the most part you want somebody that can do a varied moveset, that animates well, that looks very good, distinct and clear in motion. They have to be unique. We have a starting roster of 10, which is a little bit contentious back and forth, I know for sure, but I do think overall they are going to be bringing a design element to the table, both from a mechanic and an aesthetics sense that doesn't overlap with any of the other characters. So I don't think we're going to be seeing Garen, because Garen has a lot of similarities with Darius. Maybe we'll see him at some point, but I don't think 2 out of the 10 are going to be big, fully armored men carrying gigantic swords and axes. Like, it's possible, and there's things that they could do to make him more separate, but I think as they stand, it's going to be someone that isn't represented in another way by some other group. Second to last is introductory. I say deep while not alienating. By that, I just mean I don't think we're going to be seeing any crazy movesets with things that defy ease of understanding. We have some elements of that already. We have Echo has his time rewind mechanic that allows him to mix up, or Yasuo can dash through, but for the most part you see those, you understand what's happening, and then you kind of learn. Even if you haven't encountered something like that before, you can knowledgeably react to that. But I don't think we're going to be seeing like Shaco's setting up boxes, like something you're going to have to like learn ahead of time how to handle. We're not going to be seeing a puppet character. We're not going to be seeing something that is like very esoteric and foreign to someone who hasn't already spent a lot of time playing fighting games. And then lastly, and I don't know where that metric lands on the scale, but it has to be important, is reasonably how marketable the character is going to be. Like, the game is going to be free, but they're going to have to make money. The skins are going to have to make money. So I think for the latter 3 characters, they're really going to be swinging through with a team that can really bring in a lot of different skin varieties that are exciting for players to look at, let them live out a bunch of different fantasies with the different skins of their character. So with all that being said, it's none of these 6 characters. I don't think that they're in the top 3 at all for who's coming up next. I think the first character, the character that we're going to see get announced tomorrow, is Akali. I think that we're going to see Akali because of a handful of reasons. Primarily, we don't have anybody of the ninja archetype. This is a very specific archetype in fighting games, known for their generally like insane mix potential, being very fast and elusive. I know what I said earlier about things being too esoteric for people to know what's happening. I don't think that's going to be the case with her. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward, but I think her ability to move around and be creative and crazy is going to be what makes her her. So I say that why she specifically wins over everybody else. 3 reasons. She has one of the best designed characters League has ever made. It leans fully into the archetype of being a ninja without dulling out, watering down, or sacrificing any of her actual character in her own visual design. A lot of the times, think like old Scorpion and Sub-Zero. They were ninjas. That was about it. She leans into being a ninja, but has a different build, aesthetic, energy around her, tattoos, outfitting. It's all pretty unique when it comes to general ninja design. As well as that, and that is really big when it comes to a fighting game. You really want someone to be able to look at a character select screen and know what all of the characters are about from getting a glance at them. Take Braum, for instance. He is, a gigantic burly man with a shield. Like, that's exactly, you can see his essence, everything. He wears it on his sleeve that he doesn't have. That's really key to have that essence, especially when you're not sacrificing the character himself. She is also one of the most popular characters in League of Legends, but I think this is actually an extra element of why they might want to pick her. That she is known for having a very high skill floor in League of Legends, so she's very hard to actually pick up and get your hands on. She is very tricky to actually get to play well. And I think some of that will definitely still carry over, but it'll be less alienating for someone that really likes like KDA Akali and wants like the experience of playing a ninja without having to learn all of the mechanics of League of Legends and then a really hard character on top of all of that just to be able to get that experience. Plus, I say skins because I don't think it's the highest priority of why they're selecting characters, but a very deep repertoire of skins is definitely going to give bonus points for who they want to push through. Like I said, imagine this game launching with KDA Akali and KDA Ahri, and you could tell people that they could run a team of that if they're still KDA fans. I think they're still KDA fans, right? I don't know. So that is why I think pretty firmly that Akali is going to be the announcement for tomorrow. I also want to address really quickly that I am basing that a little bit off the leak. Am I taking the leak as gospel? Absolutely not. I could be proven wrong that it matters at all, and I would be totally fine with that. But it kind of made deducing a little bit more straightforward, because if we can take that assumption that it's a character between Ahri and Braum, like the leak had it, then you're left with all of these champions, and I kind of gave them little iconographs and imagery of like how reasonably I think they could be a character. Like Brand is way too boring, Aphelios is too new and strange, Aurora's way too new, question marks for maybe we could fit them in, or dots for probably too boring for them to be a unique character style. The really ones that came into play were Azir, Ambessa, Blitzcrank, and Akali. I think it could be Blitzcrank, although I'll get into why later. Azir, like I said, I think he's a little bit too strange and unexpected for you to really be able to follow him. And Ambessa, I think, just has a little bit too much of a design overlap on top of Darius. She does have Arcane going for her. She is very popular, but they are two Noxian warlords in heavy armor, swinging big things at you. Like, they're very different, but I think they're too similar for them to both make the starting 10, which leads us to our second selection, which is gonna be Vi for the brawler/boxer archetype. Like, do I really need to explain sort of why I think it is? Like, I think Arcane, I strongly believe it's gonna be Vi. Number one, Arcane, incredibly popular, incredibly famous. And being able to tell someone, hey, you like watching Vi punch people? You can do that, and you don't even have to play League to do that anymore. Her play style, honestly, a straightforward, brawling, rush-down character, is very welcomed in this game. We have some examples of that, but for the most part, everybody's trying to do some kind of mix or maintain some kind of space or have some kind of distance control. In the same vein that a lot of people might play 2XKO if they see that Vi is in and doing crazy stuff and beating people up, I think that we'll be able to see that being translated over. I think she'll have a lot of depth, but I think at the core of it, her playstyle, if this is her, is just going to be close the gap, beat them up. And I also think that's a nice way of having that without having 4 big bodies in the starting roster. You know, we already have Darius, Braum, and Alawi. We might get a 4th, but I think this is what pushes her over Set for me, is that she's not a small character, but she's not like the same staturing giant characters that we already have 3 of. And then lastly, on top of her having a deep skin pool as well, and aesthetics people may find entertaining, I think she's also has a good personality for it. We don't really have anybody that's like brash or brazen coming into 2XKO yet, and that's kind of an energy that's really needed. So I think that in that essence we have that. You know, we have cocky, we have stoic, we don't really have anybody that's brash. So then lastly, for the 3rd and final slot, and I'm going to back this one up as well, I think it's Thresh. I'm pretty confident that the last character that we're going to get announced is going to be Thresh. It could be, you know, we could get any order of them, and I could be wrong, but I think that we're going to get a Reach Zoner archetype, similar to Ghost Rider or Axel Low. Like I said, I don't think we're going to be getting two full zoners, but this will kind of be a nice middle ground, like a mid-long range, long chain wielder. I think that he's going to be really unique. There's a lot of League champions that are not human, and he is still humanoid, but I think he's enough of a departure from that you're going to be able to see, like, this is we're gonna start doing a bunch of other things here. So Undead Wraith represents the Shadow Isles. I think has a very unique aesthetic that would be greatly appreciated. And on top of that, they showed with Braum, and to an extent Jinx, but mostly Braum, that we have a lot in the range of support play. You know, playing off your teammate in the 2v2 is a really core aspect of 2XKO. So I think that this makes sense as the final addition for the roster to really highlight, here's all of the things you could do together. Here's all the ways that you could play together. Thresh throws out a hook, pulls him in, tags to the other guy, they do a mix. Like, you know, maybe he'll be slower than a bunch of the other characters, but be, you know, wider reaching, so he makes for great handshake tag opportunities. I think, yeah, that is my firm 3. We have Akali, we have Vi, and we have Thresh. And then lastly, I'm just going to put this up here. I just have some few closing miscellaneous thoughts. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I think, yeah, August or September for the next Alpha Lab. Like I said earlier, I think they overcorrected and they're bringing it back. I think there's an element that it might be Akali because of Alpha Lab 2, that her aggressiveness and like mix-up heavy style is going to be like a breath of fresh air to anybody that actually played Alpha Lab 2 and felt like defense was pretty suffocating. You know, I would like Set more, but I think Vi is more likely. I think Set is definitely coming, but I don't think we're getting Set and Vi. I think that's too much stepping on each other's toes for the start. I think that, yeah, they want to grab as many newcomers as possible, so I don't think they want to use anything too crazy or all over the place. And yeah, of course, you know, I'm just putting a disclaimer, like, I've considered as many possible variables as I could, and I feel like of every character in League of Legends that has not been announced for 2XKO yet, these are the 3 that really make the most sense to me in every meaning of the word. So I feel very confident in all of these picks, but I would be like, one of the reasons I'm posting this is that if I wake up tomorrow morning and go watch the video when it comes out, then I find out they announced, like, you know, Viger, and they just went against the whole Yordle thing and everything. Like, you know, I'd be laughing at myself. So that'll be, or if I'm right, then I'm popping off like a god, so miss 100% of the shots you don't take, baby. All right, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Take care.